A very good afternoon to everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all to yet another episode of our Futuristic Education web series, which is dedicated to futuristic education. An Edudevs initiative in collaboration with Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham to enlighten and empower the education community in the education trends of the 21st century. These are a city based web series where we bring the edu leaders from a particular city and a region to voice their views on certain pertinent issues emerging in the field of education. I'm Devyani Kapoor, your moderator for this panel discussion. And today we embark upon a discussion which is affecting not just national education, but global education and also the future education. Yes, we are talking about student skills in the VUCA world. What is VUCA world and what are we venturing into? VUCA, to my understanding, is an acronym which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And these are, you see, broad terms which are used to describe this emerging world. It has been highlighted post pandemic, but let me tell you, the beginning of VUCA world was made much before the pandemic had set in. In fact, it started with the dawn of the century. The entire experience of the global pandemic, as we see, saw, was an impression of what is being predicted, including environment imbalance, social and economic unpredictability, and a general sense of being lost, confused, not knowing what to expect. We were unable to predict anything. In such a state of uncertainty, this would have been anticipated a distinct set of skills from youth and students, in fact, from everyone. We all need a different set of skills to sustain ourselves in this current new world marked by VUCA. I will keep my lips quiet and not spill the beans and let our esteemed panelists talk on the topic today. Now, without further delay, let me take this opportunity to introduce you to our distinguished panel of today. I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Bindu Elizabeth Koshi, Vice Principal of Mount Carmel School, Anand Niketan, New Delhi. Dr. Koshi has guided various international projects in schools like Doors to Diplomacy, United Nations of America, Germany, Eating Green projects, etc. She is an ISA coordinator on various projects of the school and was also a member of the CBSE evaluation team, which visited schools to promote CCE pattern of evaluation. Her experience is vast and has contributed towards her high level of expertise. We are glad to have you with us, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm delighted to introduce you to Ms. Reena Bajaj, an established author and an ex-headmistress of a reputed school in New Delhi. Ms. Bajaj has been affiliated with the education sector for over 17 years. She has contributed to several articles and blogs for the Parent Edge magazine and has also authored academic books. Welcome, ma'am, to this webinar.
Thank you, Ms. Devyani. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
And let me now introduce you to a wonderful young panelist, Miss Lakshmi Madhavan, Assistant Manager for Career Counseling from Directorate of Admissions at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. Yes, Lakshmi, I call you a young panelist because I feel that you bring in a lot of positive energy each time you come to this show. Welcome, Lakshmi.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And yeah, very good evening to everyone here. So thank you for inviting me. It's really my pleasure to be here to interact with the young minds. Thank you so much.
And now, last but not the least, my most favorite panelists of today, the student community. Let's hear the students' point of view as well. And we have today Miss Vanya Joshi from Nirmal Bharati School, Dwarka, New Delhi, and Mr. Ronnie Reggie from Mount Carmel School, Anand Niketan, New Delhi, again Dwarka. Welcome, Vanya, and welcome, Mr. Ronnie Reggie.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And now, without much ado, let's begin our discussion about student skills in the VUCA world. So this is the ice-breaking question, and it will start in the order of the way I introduced our panelists. So it starts with Dr. Koshi, then Ms. Raina, and followed by Ms. Lakshmi, Ms. Vanya, and then Mr. Rani. So, what is VUCA world? What is it's simply what's its definition, and what effects could it have or is having on the current scenario by and large? G. Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you, Devyani. I totally agree with what you have told about VUCA. And for me also, VUCA describes a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous situation. It's totally an unpredictable situation. So what can help us to orient ourselves during such situation is recognizing their multiple flavors and understanding how to deal with them. So it was a very common phrase during this pandemic situation that we are living in an unprecedented times. So we have seen a lot of transition happening. This transition, as I told you earlier, this transition from offline to online education, then behavioral changes in students that a teacher has to cope up within the class, and parents' intervention to student disciplining, etc. So these were the common things which we have seen during that pandemic situation, and parents are really very scared, very apprehensive regarding what will happen to the future education. So the future education, they can anticipate a lot of issues, and they can shape up the conditions accordingly. They can understand the consequences of issues and actions. And I would like to suggest that how to cope up with this VUCA world. First thing is that teachers need to have an aptitude to learn. That means learning to learn, relearn and unlearn. Teachers have to practice this. Then the most important thing is that empathize with the students. Students have come to school after the 2 years of pandemic, and we need to empathize with the students. That is very important. And also teachers must embrace the changes and have strategic insights. Crisis management is another one which in order to mitigate the difficult times. So I think by these things we would be able to cope up with this VUCA situation. That's all.
Well
Thank you.
said. Thank you so much. Chris, and three Chris points that Dr. Kosh has made. One is that as educators, we need to have that attitude to learn and relearn, which we've all been so vociferous about, embrace the changes, and be ready and equip ourselves for crisis management or management in crisis. Thank you so much. We shall come back to you again. Yes, Ms. Raina, what are your opinion about this?
Yeah, so thank you, Ms. Devyani, and I completely agree to Dr. Koshi and very well defined the VUCA world situation. And here I would just like to add to what she said. We have been living in the VUCA world, I think, right from the day we came into existence, because nothing ever can be predicted. So the uncertainty, the complexity of life, and the ambiguity in the entire situation, that was always there. Yes, the levels have gone up now with times. It was very, very in a very submissive tone earlier, because we could things easily. But now the situations have become little difficult, I would say, when it comes to the survival in the VUCA world, because the options are multiple. There is multiplicity of information coming in from all sides. So definitely all these things make the entire world, the entire environment VUCA dominated. So I think definitely the pandemic has taught us a lot during this time, and how to survive, because within a span of few days, with the entire education sector changed. I would say there was an overnight change that happened. The teachers and the students and even the parents community who were not even comfortable with technology, suddenly everything was in technology. The schools where phone was not allowed, the school itself was in the phone. So much changed overnight, and it was, I think, the what instinct the human beings already have been imbibed with is adaptability. So the sooner we adapt this, the sooner we embrace the new things, that will help us survive in the VUCA world. The curiosity should be there, the embracement should be there. That's what I feel would really can make all of us survive in the VUCA world.
I think very well said. And, she being an author, she gave her own perspective that we've always been in a VUCA world. It's just that the bar has gone up and things have become more, with the complexities of life and the demands on human beings, the things have become more high, the VUCA world. So we had to come out with a definition of VUCA world. But yes, there was always this beautifully represented. Thank you so much. And yes, Mr. Lakshmi, what is it that you would like to reflect upon the VUCA world?
Actually, I completely agree to the opinion of the other two speakers. It's completely like we are living in a VUCA world, and probability, the influence, the percentage of influence is getting higher. So it's like there are rapid changes are occurring. So everything is unpredictable. It's the world, like we have the uncertainty everywhere. So it's because of all the maybe something like some technological advancements, or maybe I'll call this as technological disruptions. All these are having an effect on our lives. So it's like we all are living in a connected society. So everything is very fast, and we don't know what will happen at the next moment. Maybe earlier we thought like we would never use something like maybe the smartphones, or maybe something like internet, and all maybe this Ukraine war or this COVID pandemic. So everyone has created the range or the intensity to a peak. So it's something like a type of environment where we have something called volatile, uncertain, or complex or ambiguous situations or an environment. So we have to come up with maybe some solutions for all this, or maybe something which teaches us to deal with the situations, or maybe we have to analyze all of them and we have to respond to it. So it's really important for a student or maybe any individual to cope up with this world, to come up with solutions to uh, help them to cope up with the VUCA world or the VUCA situation.
So actually, we are all now. My question, thank you so much, Lakshmi, that yes, there is uncertainty and we have to equip ourselves, our students. So the problem is that we all know a lot about what is VUCA world, but how the VUCA world will unfold, that is something is very questionable, very unpredictable. So what will be its consequences? And every time its version will changes. So let me hear out from my young panelists. First thing that Vanya and Ronnie. So both of you, first Vanya and then Ronnie, have you, before we spoke to you about this topic, Had you people heard about this VUCA word, this acronym?
I personally had not, but listening to everything, it makes complete sense to me. And it, like, as a student, there has always been this sense of fear when you're going from the schooling environment to the actual world, and you have to just suddenly accustomize yourself to all these real world problems. And with that lack of clarity and that lack of guidance, it has always been there. It has been more of a consistent thing, like growing up and you're learning like acha 12th aane wala hai and it's gonna get scarier. But with the pandemic, this problem has only snowballed. So what I personally have learned to do is create a safety net around me, people that I can go to with guidance, with internships and volunteering, and putting like these small term goals that are easier to achieve, because otherwise the world seems too big. So it's firstly what I've been working on, and plus a couple things that Miss Bindu said, Dr. Koshi, with the relearning, unlearning, and all of that, that makes complete sense to me, and I would actually like to emphasize on that.
Very well said that. Yes, I mean, and I'm happy that you're very honest that you were experienced all this while what we are talking today, but you hadn't heard of this. Yes, Ronnie, had you heard of this word before we sent you the topic? And what does
I
it
too
mean?
hadn't heard of it before, but yeah, listening to the other panelists, like, I believe I have had first-hand experience of it during the pandemic years. So when the pandemic first hit on us, the entire scenario completely changed. School life was transformed from an offline thing to an online one, and it took some time to adapt to it. The competitive exams got delayed. All the classes were a bit uh, delayed. It took people time to adapt to all the gadgets and all. So yeah, it um, it was really tough adapting to it initially, but yes, one has to embrace the changes, and that's one thing we can do um, while living in the VUCA.
The VUCA word? Right. Very well said that, I mean, you were experiencing all this while that the exams and how every and you're right that for you the VUCA world was that unpredictability, whether we'll have the exam online or offline. So what arrangements would be made, then another wave comes in and then another notification comes in. So yes, these are the situations. They were complex, they were volatile, they were unpredictable. So thank you so much, everyone, for this wonderful ice-breaking session and making us understand what and how you perceived VUCA world. My next question is to Miss Lakshmi and Miss Raina. Now, we have always and will continue to grapple with questions like, which I was just reading, how can we organize our community so our communities can thrive in this situation? Or how might individual safety and freedom be protected while maintaining a collective good? How might we socialize and educate our children so that they remain safe and still are part of this society, they thrive in the society? So, how much effect does not knowing what the future of VUCA have on the kind of learning students gain today? And consequently, how much constant adaptation is required? Because, like the students said, we didn't know what's VUCA world, but that's what. So, they're not knowing. Is it important to educate them about this? And then, how would we, how much are they required to adapt? There is a level of resilience. Yes, Lakshmi.
So
Miss Lakshmi,
what yeah, it's fine, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So what I initially had, or what I initially thought was like, we all have been following what was the previous logic or what was already set up by maybe different people. So we have been already following all these things for many years. Now, what my opinion is, we need to think about changes. Maybe we need to think about adapting different situations, or maybe adapting different skills into our children. That will be a very important part that can help the children to cope up with the situation. Maybe something like we can inculcate different skills, maybe communication, critical thinking, collaboration. So a lot of skills. This can help them to maybe cope up with the VUCA challenges, and maybe to upskill their lives when it comes to something like selecting a career, maybe job opportunity, maybe in different interviews. So all these things. So the first step is to educate them that this is happening and you need to have these skills to cope up with this world. So if you have the skills, then it would be easy for you to take decision at different points of your lifetime. So maybe something like different information skills, something like literacy skills, a lot of skills. So it should be inculcated in each and every child, maybe from their school days itself, something like emotional intelligence, or something like what the relation is between different things. So this has to be inculcated. So that's what my opinion, and then they'll be able to come up with, or then they'll be able to cross the borders when they're having some situations in their life. So they can get an analysis of these skills. They can make use of these skills when they are in a situation to make a decision.
So yeah, rightly said that, skills, how they'll be able to adapt in this changing scenario is by equipping them with the right skills. And to my mind, I feel that problem solving and critical thinking are two very, very important skills that we should equip our children with. Yes, Ms. Raina, what is your perspective on this question?
Yes, so a very relevant, I think, point already brought in by you, the skill education that we are talking about, and what Ms. Lakshmi also just said. When we talk about education, when we talk about a particular situation when a child is into, definitely the knowledge or the education that the child has been getting throughout so many years, that will definitely help him or her. But at the end of the day, the situation is something that he is actually into, and maybe that is the time when there is nobody there to help him out. So that is what the purpose of education should be, where the child could take the right decision and could again adapt to that condition. Now, in our times, I would talk about, the times when we people were students. The education was more like a cup, an empty cup. The student used to come here, and the purpose of the teacher was to fill in a lot of information and knowledge into that. So that definitely worked in those times, because at that time the internet was not there. There was no the term like Google was not there. So but now in today's time, the children are already like a filled cup. They come to you when they already know quite a bit, and they do not look up to a teacher for the information. They already have more than what a teacher can actually probably give them. I'm not demeaning the teacher's role here, but then this is what the situation is. The children already are aware. Now the purpose of education has to be like a compass. So we have to move from cup to a compass like situation, where the child can navigate, can know which is the direction and where to move. The information is there, but sifting of information, sieving of information, what is right, what is wrong, that distinguishing factor has to be there, embedded. So that should be the role of the schools, the teachers, the parents, to give them the right path, to give them that, that value system where they can actually know what is right and what is wrong, because every time the parents or the teachers cannot guide them. So knowledge definitely helps a person to reach to that level where they can take decision, but that is not the end goal. The end goal is where the child or a person has to take the decision on his or her own. Maybe that doesn't, that the answers do not come in a platter. So you have to find your own platter, you have to make your own platter. So the parenting role and the teacher's role changes here in the present scenario. That is what I would like to share.
Right. I think I really like the compass attitude, like the path, one is skill and the other is path, and both of them become very, very important. And as you rightly said, that because of so much of overflow of the information, the students already come with a filled cup. And so what is required is two things: give them the right path, help them sift the art of discernment, which I always keep talking about so much. Those are the kind of skills that need to be honed. Thank you so much, Ms. Lakshmi and Ms. Raina. Now, Dr. Kushi, you are a vice principal, and you're constantly dealing with parents, you're constantly dealing with students. Now, the students will have to be prepared with all the skills that we have been talking about ever since the webinar started: skills of problem solving, thinking, research, crisis management, and empathetic. So all these things, of course, we are aware of. When it comes to parents, what are some of the biggest concerns of the parents about their children in this VUCA world? Like maybe 10 years back, you did not find those concerns which you find today for their children. And what are the kind of skills and how difficult it is now for you to handle the situation? Yes, Dr. Kushi.
Yes, Devyani. So, of course, parents are, as I told you earlier, parents are very apprehensive regarding the future of education. So, of course, there isn't a crystal ball that can tell us exactly what skills will be needed and what won't be needed. The world of work is evolving quickly, which means we have to figure out how to prepare for a future job that is impossible to predict now. So we need to equip our students with the 21st century skills. And specifically, I focus on these 4 C's, as we already know. What are these 4 C's? Like critical thinking, then creativity, communication, and what else? The third one, creativity, critical thinking,
Collaboration.
collaboration. So these 4 skills are very much required for the students. And apart from these skills, they need to have other skills also. They need to develop other skills like cognitive flexibility. That means they should develop a mentality to adapt to the change and conceptualize complex multiple ideas. See, then digital literacy and computational thinking is there. We are all aware of this STEM, STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and maths. But have you heard of this SMAC, SMAC? Now this is replaced by SMAC. That means Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud. So this is the latest one. And it seems that we are being bombarded with digital buzzwords. And we need to train scholars to deal with the challenges of the 21st century, some which may not be yet to be encountered. And another thing is that we have to equip our children to take their own decisions, decision making. Because all the time, this artificial intelligence and robots may not be helpful for us. When we think about this medical field, human intervention is really required. It cannot be done only by artificial intelligence and robots. So human intervention is required. The next is about emotional and social intelligence. These qualities are absolutely crucial in some sectors. Especially, I told you about this the medical field, and the demand for jobs in healthcare are in the increase, demonstrating how some roles will always require a human element. So having empathy, as I told you earlier, empathizing with the patients or empathizing with other persons, and communication skills is something you are most definitely going to need. And the last One is creative and innovative mindset. We need to inculcate that creativity and innovative mindset among our students in order to face the challenges of tomorrow. Thank you, Deven.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure if parents are here today and they would be listening to us, so these are some of the skills which so beautifully have been, dished out by Dr. Koshi, that the four C's, of course, that we talk about. But uh, what I really liked was the SMART that you talk about, that the social, mobile, and analytic cloud that we are introducing. So the kind of jobs, the whole idea is that, when you're talking about the VUCA world, we cannot predict the kind of jobs our students will be entering into or would be joining, maybe 2 years or 3 years. Initially, few days back, we were talking about 5 years, but now I think even after 2 years, we will not be knowing. Newer job ideas will be topping up. So for that, it becomes extremely important to have certain skill set that will help you survive and sustain yourself in this kind of a changing world. So, to the parents, it's important that you should constantly be focusing, the teachers, the parents, on focusing on the right kind of skills, which they will definitely get not just within the classroom, but giving them an exposure beyond and giving an exposure in the real time world. So, yes, Lakshmi, what is it? Because I'm sure for you it will be a very different, because I don't know how much are you dealing with parents, because at the undergrad level, it's more dealing with students and less with the parents.
So we have been dealing with students a lot, as you said, very less we are talking with parents and all. But we do discuss with parents a lot of things. Maybe like they don't know what the aim is. It just a job or something more than that. So what we used to provide our students is something we ask them to be updated in whatever field it is. So it's something that is really important at this point of time. I would tell you, being from a technology background, for me, we always used to tell students it's something called interdisciplinary learning or something called multidisciplinary learning. We used to tell students to be updated and to learn new skills that is really important for them to survive in this situation. So maybe even for a computer science engineer, they should have some idea about electronics to be in robotics, have some idea of mechanical to be in robotics. So it's like we always ask them to be with the current trends, to analyze the current trends rather than using the traditional methods or maybe the older methods of study, to be more into practical with all the things, to have an idea about what the new age demands from you. So this awareness we are also providing it to parents. Then only there will be a matching between both the student and the parent.
Right. I think very right that, telling the parents that constantly you also need to upgrade yourself and identify that what are the newer trends and not just hinging on to the old traditional, as the examples that you're given in academics about interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. Sometimes I think does it get difficult for you to counsel the parents and make them understand that why, multidisciplinary approach or interdisciplinary approach is important?
So it's like initially, I would say dealing with some even students are more updated because they have all the resources. But while comparing with parents, they're not having an understanding about what's actually happening, what this course means, or what the other course means. So it's like parents have a basic idea now, like computer science is the goal. So they only feel like, yeah, computer science can get a job or can get a stable position for their son or daughter like that. So they are not having an understanding about the different technologies, maybe about the different courses. So it would be difficult for the students. So one thing is from the school side only, this can be done because when comparing with colleges, schools will have a more connection, more interaction with parents. Maybe they'll have monthly once or maybe 6 months twice, some meetings and all will be there. So it's an area where teachers can help the parents to have an understanding to come up with all these things. So for that, we educators has to be updated, and then we can make all of them aware about what the current situation demands.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. Now, let me have some discussion with the student panelists. Okay. Now, Vanya and Ronnie, I have this question for you. You know, when you all interact with each other, you learn from each other, peer learning, you kind of, there is kind of, um, learning from each other's personalities, ways, attitudes, interacting with your peers, and giving those scenarios often is a move most of you would like to go with the trend that is trending. Now, what are your priorities to create a bright future for yourself, and how do you think it's becoming different? You guys, I think, are in class 11 or 12. How is it different when you were in class probably 7 and 8? Because 2 years I will minus, we were all under a pandemic situation. And what, according to you all, are the chinks in the armor of school education, and how's this world different? Like, now that there is a term VUCA world to it, but you said you were experiencing. So how do you feel different today? The positive, the negative? Just, let's talk to you people. Yes, both of you.
Well, first, I feel like we need to understand that the term bright future is like very multifaceted, and that every individual might have a different perspective on what a bright future means to them. So, if you think about it, if I think for my past self and myself now, my approach has become very pragmatic. Earlier, it was very individualistic, like I want to reach a certain satisfaction and happiness and follow my passion, which exists. It's still instilled in me today, but I think of more of practical approaches. Like, theek hai, I want to reach that certain extent, that crescendo in life, but what are certain things that I must follow to reach that place? Like, it is a given that you have to have some sort of experience, a well-rounded portfolio, and like you have to be academically intelligent. And even if it's not the main focus, it is something that is very vital, and you have to recognize that. Apart from that, that sense of diligence with work, quality of work, drive, and deliberation and negotiation with your career paths and counselors, and actually looking at it like an experience, that this is something that I have to encounter in life. So what is the most optimistic way in which I can view it and get the best thing out of it? Now, looking at the second part of the question, let's go into that question with the prerequisite that the Indian education system is flawed. And just to clarify, it's amazing that we as active members of society can identify the flaws, we can identify the problems. Because without identification, we can't move to the further steps of finding solutions. So let's recognize that the gaps that were once chinks in the armor of our education system have over time developed into bigger holes. And from a student point of view, I think that the problem at the very forefront is the immense pressure that is put on academics. Now, I see all my friends around me and I see them putting in so much effort and so much work, and it is completely draining. Like, at the end of the day, we are at points of exhaustion. And that is not what the student lifestyle is about. It's about having that balance and being able to have work-life balance, schoolwork, internship, volunteer, relationships around you, and just having that healthy lifestyle. Because only focusing on academics is not going to fulfill us as students. The entirety of student lifestyle is about being active learners, being out there and actively seeking knowledge from anywhere you can get, and questioning the things around us. Second, and last point, because it's kind of dragging, is the lack of space for failure. Because I feel that in our education system, there is no space to fall. Creating a space where failure is not only accepted but encouraged will motivate students to leap out of their comfort zone and try new things and possibly fail, but be resilient and keep moving forward.
Great, commendable. I feel like giving you a big round of applause because it was so beautifully articulated. Whatever was coming in my mind, that I would like to ask you this, and you were bang on giving me answers to it. So this was Vanya. But before that, I would request Team Edudevs to please allow Ms. Jyoti to open up her camera. I think she's unable to open the video. Please help her with that. I've already sent many texts to Team Edudevs.
Ma'am, already we did already.
All right. Okay, thank you. So the skills that she's talking about, this is Vanya, who's telling us that, yes, it's very important to have, well-rounded portfolio, a drive, if you want to be a 21st century student, so much that we all are talking about, deliberating about. And I think Vanya has put it so beautifully that I'm completely bold that then diligence. And I was just writing deliberation, abilities to deliberate, and being able to identify and chalk out your career trajectory. And then she has also identified the flaws in the Indian system, which she was bang on right that yes, things like the immense academic pressure, trying to balance life and work. And my God, I mean, so beautifully said, because we always talk about a work-life balance when we are in jobs. But here, definitely, yes, because at one point of, at one aspect, we have policies, new policies in with reference to new kind of, where there's been a paradigm shift in the way education is being seen. So the demands on the student community is rising, but the scope to provide that space to failures are not accepted till it. So, those are the kind of, aspects which needs to be taken care of. So policy is there, but definitely we need to take care of this. Very well spoken, Vanya. Great. Let's move on to Ronnie Reggie. Ronnie Reggie, what you would like to, how would you like to interpret your situation? And situation, when I say your situation, I mean you represent a community. And so it is the situation of the entire community that you're today representing. Yes.
So human brains are basically prediction machines. We like to know what's going to happen, and so we like to prepare according to it. Now, all this was fine earlier when it wasn't that fast paced. Things were relatively slow. We could guess what would happen next. But now in the current VUCA world, it's not possible. So today, one needs to have a flexible routine in order to incorporate the extras that are the difficult situations that life throws at us. And also, we need to be mentally strong to face the uncertainties. Now, schools should also help us in order to create this flexible routine and to help build us mentally. As Dr. Bindu previously said, they can try incorporating the 4 C's into their curriculum. And also, instead of the current definition of VUCA, that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, we can have a new meaning to it as in vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. Vision is basically to make informed choices and maintain a strategic long-term perspective. Understanding is to empathize with other people's feelings and also to keep an open mind to what's happening around us. Clarity is basically to simplify the complexities in our surroundings, and adaptability in order to adapt quickly to the changing environment. This would help our students to be better adapted to the many obstacles posed by the VUCA world.
Yes, I think you've actually summarized on that. The ambiguities need to be checked. And as you mentioned, and Dr. Koshi was rightly saying that the 4 C's will form the edifice to survive yourself in the VUCA world. So it is all about skills, and it is less about marks, and it is less about theoretical knowledge. So thank you so much, students. Really had a wonderful time chatting with you. Now, the term VUCA has adopted, I was going through, there is a positive VUCA and the negative VUCA. The negative aspect is the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. There is a positive strand to this. People have created where they say, vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability or agility. So this is a very, very positive and optimistic view, which we need to inculcate in the VUCA world. Now, my question to Dr. Koshi and Ms. Lakshmi is, how can this vision of understanding, clarity, agility, all that the positive aspects of VUCA become realistic definition of the real-time VUCA world that we are discussing, and how students need to then interpret their situations in a meaningful way.
Yes, Devyani. So we now live in a connected society where change can be fast-paced, constant, and unpredictable. I think a state of flux has replaced the sense of uncertainty, then stability, and familiarity that people were used to. And as far as a child is concerned, there are four aspects of personality. And when we think about the vision and understanding of a child, these four aspects of personality are more important. First one is mental, then second is physical, third is spiritual, and the fourth one is emotional and social. So a child has to be helped to develop in all these areas to grow into a well balanced and useful member of the society. So we can sustain with this VUCA world of futuristic education. And also our aim is to provide infrastructure. We need to provide them the conducive environment, especially the infrastructure, the atmosphere, and facilities for a child to develop in all these areas. So every teacher at the end of the day should evaluate his or her effort, and they should feel deeply satisfied for a job well done. They need to ensure that the child has understood the things and the child is comfortable with the present scenario of education.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Dr. Koshi. Yes, you very rightly said that the educators need to ensure that the child is, all the four faculties of the child are properly developed and honed, like mental, physical, social, and spiritual as well. Now, to you, Lakshmi, I would like to ask you, when this overpowering negative aspects of VUCA world, which definitely seem more attractive to our youth, and so how would you pitch in the positive? So, ma'am has very rightly said, okay, these things have to be taken care of. But on the one side, you have Netflix. On the other side, we are talking about inculcating this spiritual aspect, making them socially responsible. There is a lot of dichotomy which we see. So, what is it? What would you suggest as maybe a parent or
Yeah,
as
ma'am.
not parent, as an educator? Yes.
So the first thing I would think of when preparing our students or our children for this VUCA world is something like everywhere we'll ask them to concentrate on their future. We would never ask the students to concentrate on what is now happening in their life. We always say you need to focus on future. You need to do this thing. So it's like we can ask them to start from today. Maybe something like identifying their strength, what are their interests, maybe start with that positive they have, and then they can prepare for the maybe future. So this has to be identified first, or in the first with first priority, then they'll be able to prepare for the future. So it's like I would like to mention about something called the positive part, like vision, understanding, or clarity, or agility. So it's something which is very important at this point of time for the students, because if they are not able to cope up with the VUCA world, their survival in the industry would be difficult. So when it comes to volatility, we know it's everything is unpredictable. Something can happen. Even the worst can happen. So they should have a vision. It's like they should have an eye on, yeah, if something is happening, what they have to do. They should have a clear focus on how they should react if something like this is happening. So this can be done only if students are having a proper view of what is going to happen, or if something changes, what decision they have to take. Maybe it will take some time for the students to inculcate something called as vision, but they can start making out it from there, maybe from now onwards. Maybe something like understanding. It's like we never know what is the definition for uncertainty. So it's like we don't know what it is going to happen. So we have to have an understanding. Yeah, this is going to happen. This is something which is which is happening. So every student or every individual has to explore about the different options, maybe about the possibilities. So they have to have a reflection of themselves. So try to have a clear-cut understanding of themselves and then the situations. That's something I would refer to as something called the understanding. Maybe you should look around what's happening, maybe in different societies, maybe around the world. So you can use your intelligence to analyze all the situations. That's what it mean by understanding. Then comes to having clarity. So it's like, we know things are getting complex. We're having a lot of things. So maybe you can make an analysis. You can divide it into different parts if possible. Then you can solve it out. So there are different methods. So how you should work, how you should communicate. So all these things will come under something called clarity. Especially when you're working in an industry, the teamwork and all those things is really important. Then something called adaptability. It's like, yeah, this is happening, so I have to get adapted to it, or something called agility. So you have to adapt to it, quickly adapting to a situation. I would tell you, especially for the software firms and all, maybe if for some years you're working with this, and maybe currently it got changed, and you have something new software and you have to cope up with it. So you have to be adaptive. It's something called, even though it's an unprecedented or uncertain time, you have to have that adaptability skill. So one thing is, everyone should look around, or maybe you should focus on what's happening around, have an analysis, think on what you can do, what you will be able to, or how you'll react to a particular situation. That is really important at this point of time. So everyone should learn all these things. Then it's easy for a student to cope up with something called VUCA world, or maybe the difficulties that this VUCA world is creating for every individual.
I think Lakshmi, I was just hearing like Miss Lakshmi is given such a beautiful pointers that if you need to survive, and they're very simple and adaptable pointers that for students. And I think so. She says that first is you need to have a vision, and unless you have a vision for that, you have to have a clarity of what it is, whether it is a situation or you're making a decision. So clarity, and then probably a vision, and then an understanding of the situation. And finally, she says that it's very important. Things may not go the way you want them to be. So very important is adaptability. You need to be agile to the changing scenario, and that is what VUCA world is about. You need to know, if you're working, that how it is important to coexist with different kind of human beings, and not just give up your job one fine day that I cannot do it, or probably. So these are the skills of the 21st century. You need to be able to take the pressures the 21st century offers you. I think Miss Lakshmi, I always feel the youth icon panelist, she's given wonderful pointers to our youth. And I was just seeing, I'm very happy that I have Mr. Mohammad Razul Kareem from Bangladesh. And we are, I think our webinars are going all the way in South Asia. And I'm very happy. I think if he has any question, welcome Mr. Razul Kareem. If you have any question, I would like you to please put it in the chat box. And it's, very overwhelming that you're doing some meaningful work and it's being disseminated. Ms. Raina, my question to you is that Ms. Koshi was so much talking about, which is actually very important, the four C's, which form the basis of the 21st century skill. Now, very briefly, what steps can schools and institutions at large take to foster these four skills of collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity? And how does NEP play a role in such reforms?
Right, Ms. Divyani, thank you for the question. And I would just, I know we are running a little short of time, but I would really try to speeden up that. And, when we talk about these four C's, I think these are again like the VUCA world, the four C's. These are the terminologies given by us to, understand a particular situation and make things, easy to understand for us and for others. Now, when we talk about, for example, when we are talking about the complexity, the uncertainty, it is again something. When we were talking uncertain, every moment it was our gurus, I'm talking about that age old time when they used to say we do not know about the next moment. So uncertainty is something that is going to be there. It was there, it will be there. So acceptance and adapting that, first of all, will make life easy. Secondly, when we talk about clarity, we talk about, there are certain things that are under our control. There are certain things that are beyond our control. So this is one thing that I want to tell children also, and to the parents also, who keep worrying about children's performance, and they are worrying about all the A's in all the categories. So first of all, there are certain things under control. Definitely we have to work towards that. But there are certain things that are beyond our control. The pandemic, there are 100 other things that are beyond our control. So please leave them aside. This will reduce the complexity version and will make things a little easy for you and give clarity and will give you more of agility, because when you know there is little that you have to work upon, your focus becomes more. And when we talk about these incorporating in the school system, the first of all creativity is something. Let the children think wild. The child was born curious and creative. You leave a 7-8 month old child on the floor, what would he do? He would start fiddling with things. He would start putting finger into everything. He would start eating, putting everything in the mouth. That shows the child was born curious. Who killed that curiosity? Who killed that creativity to explore things? We as parents, as teachers, as school are somewhere responsible where we give too much of justification to things. We are already giving them prepared answers. Where are we expecting creativity and critical thinking? So let them make their own mistakes. We also made our own mistakes. If we give something to them, it might be again wrong. We are living in an uncertain world. We are also not 100% sure about tomorrow. So let the children make their own decisions and learn from their own mistakes, rather than they putting the onus on the parents or the school that you are responsible for our failure. So give them that decision-making authority, make them responsible. As parents, stop doing the work that your children are supposed to be doing. It is your child's homework, and rather than the child, the parents are more worried. Why is that scenario? Let the child, bear the consequences of his or her own actions. That responsibility would come in, and then I think, we can, that problem solving definitely was again attached to that. When we are talking about collaboration, the child has to struggle to get his or her own things done. It is the other way around. When I see, especially in the primary wing and the middle wing, the parents are calling each other to know what happened in the school. If my child missed out, he's not telling me that he doesn't know what the homework has to be done. Let the children take their own responsibility. This will add to that. Let them fall. Well, as Vanya said, failure, we have to give them that space for failure. We all failed. We are not successful every time. So I think this is the culture. If we create, we will be able to get what our student community asked from us just now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think very well said that let them make those informed decisions, give them the freedom to, be accountable for their own work. Even if they go wrong, even if they fail, it is okay to fail. Now I have in my chat box, so I might just skip one of my questions, but I have Miss Suraya Banu, and I was very tempted to ask this question from maybe Dr. Koshi or then Miss Lakshmi, and then of course Miss Raina. She says that can you please identify as to what led to VUCA? So I think that's a very, very long discussion. But if very briefly, she says that we are identifying the steps to cope up for VUCA. We've also seen but what led to VUCA? Very quickly, what led to VUCA, Ms. Raina?
As I said in the beginning, VUCA was already there. We just gave a term. In 90s, when there was this American military and this war scenario, the Cold War, not going too much into the history, that was the time when this term VUCA coined up. But the uncertainty of life, the ambiguity, the complexity, this was there right from the day of existence. So the only thing is embrace it. Be positive, embrace it with gratitude, embrace it with open mindedness, and you will be able to survive. So we are making things complex. It is not that complex.
Yes. And we need to. And Dr. Koshi, what is it? What led to, the 21st century?
I totally agree with Rana, and so of course VUCA was already there. And what makes it different is that it is a changing world. The overall pattern of teaching, learning, everything is changing. And the methods opted for this education and this has become very exciting, sensible, and productive. I'm talking about education only. So when we sum up all these, so we see a new approach to education, and that is known as the futuristic education. That is where we see that VUCA environment. So this approach makes the student learn at a global level. So VUCA was there, VUCA is still there, and VUCA will be there. The only thing is that they need to adapt themselves to the changes. Let them, as Mrs. Raina said, let them make the mistakes, let them come up with a solution. That is how we need to sustain.
We need to identify that, as everyone said, that it's just that we are talking about VUCA today because we are a little overwhelmed with the 2 year situation that we face. But if you look at these terms, uncertainty, unpredictability, they were always there. It was never a time, but we had mechanisms to cope. With the life becoming more complex, yes, the demands on each individual have become different. So that's why we are talking about VUCA world. Now, towards the end, we always encourage our students and participants to ask questions from our panelists. So Ms. Vanya and Mr. Ronnie, I think this is the first time, Mr. Ronnie, somebody is addressing you as Mr. Ronnie, right? Any questions for our panelists, and whom is that question for? And yes, whom would you want to question?
There are no questions as such.
Would you want
I
to
agree
discuss?
with no, pardon?
You want to discuss anything with any panelist? Your problem with the panelist?
Nothing as such. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Vanya?
I just wanna say that a couple points that really stuck with me were what Miss Raina said about students not having that liberty to even experience things on their own. Because I have a younger sister and I've seen her classmates and their parents especially just being on their head always and having that stake and not letting them experience what's actually going on. And I really agree with that point. And how I've already, I think, mentioned before the thing I said with Dr. Koshi about the relearn, unlearn thing. I really liked it. That's why I'm saying it again, because I haven't seen teachers often being open to learning. Because it makes a lot of sense. They are very skilled people that have done something for so long that they're rigid in their ways. But it shows so much when they are open to learning. It shows that they are actually growing along with us, and that just helps a lot. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for doing my job, Anya, encapsulating the entire discussion. Thank you so much. That will save some time on me. Now, one last statement that you would want to make, each panelist, we begin on this show, and any message, very brief, very crisp, any message that you would want to share regarding this particular topic to the educators, to students, to parents, to the world by and large. So, what would be your last statement on this show today? We begin with Dr. Koshi, who on to Ms. Ramona, and Ms. Lakshmi, Ms. Ramya, and Mr. Ronnie. Yes.
Yes, I would say that learning should be holistic, integrated, enjoyable, and engaging. That's it, David.
Joyous, engaging, and holistic. Thank you. Ms. Raina.
Yes, so I would, this is a kind of a message that I would want to give, when we know and we have accepted that everything is uncertain, let there be only one certain thing, and that is the love of the family and friends, where the children can really fall back upon. When they know everything outside is uncertain, one thing it is there that is definitely certain: my parents will never stop loving me, and whatever they are saying, it is for my good. If that trust is there, that certainty is there, no matter whatever mistakes they make, they will always come back, and they will always take you as a cushion. So be their backbone. And for children, again, one last message. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of friends you might have, but there are only one parents that you have. So trust on them that they will never give you any wrong direction. So wherever you feel in this uncertain world you are lost, come back to the certain world, and that is your family. Thank you.
Beautifully expressed. Yes, Ms. Lakshmi.
One thing I wish to tell us, education is something which is beyond all the conditions. So it's like you have to learn, you have to keep you updated. So that has to be there. And the next part is, I know a lot of people will be like, yeah, they don't want to change. So don't ever resist change. So accept everything, don't refuse it, and don't be afraid. If you fail, it's completely fine. Yeah, try another time. That's okay that you are not able to crack one exam in the first attempt. It's so have an understanding that it's completely fine to fail, to get up, start working again, and all the best to all the people here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, Ramya.
Off the top of my head, I would like to say that the only constant in all of our lives is change. And if we are brave enough to embrace it and go along with it and adapt, I think that will just make the journey much more enjoyable and just be good for all of us. And I think that'd be great.
Thank you. Yes, Ronnie.
Um, this just one thing that we should all learn to pause to listen and look around. This can help us in adapting quickly to the uncertain conditions that the present world offers us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I have a very lovely message from one of our audience, Mr. APS Damna, who says, and I would like to read, that challenges make life beautiful and meaningful. So don't be afraid of the VUCA world. Adopt and adapt and be agile, and uh, don't be a quitter. Failures are accepted. It's good to fail. So, the absolute best way we can approach preparing our children for a VUCA world is not by focusing on future, but rather on focusing on their now. Focus on the kids in front of us today about their strengths, unique perspectives, their interests, to best ensure adults prepared for tomorrow. Create an environment in which students are valued, they are heard, and hence they are able to make informed decisions, as I always say. Thank you so much. I was just reading and researching, and I found out that there is another word that is going to be very trending. A new acronym recently emerged to describe the new world we are living in is BANI: brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. The digital acceleration that occurred in the last 2 years with the pandemic made this concept even more relevant, since it's clearly expressed the reality in many organizations that they are facing today. The Bani world seems to be an evolution of the VUCA world, but what does it stand for? And we shall hear out what it stands for in one of our subsequent episodes. Thank you so much for sparing your precious time and being part of this show, which is known as Futuristic Education. So stay tuned to our further and upcoming episodes. And thank you. So, do we have any closing audio video? Thank you so much, and hope to see you all soon in another episode next week. Thank you so much. We shall take your leave.